and welcome to The Dirt, where we discuss anything and everything about plant care and gardening. Today we will be talking about trees with winter interest. Here in Wisconsin we get a lot of winter, but that doesn't mean that your landscape and gardens has to end in fall. When many people think about evergreens in winter, they think about trees like white pine, blue spruce, and cedars. Certainly they are beautiful options, but there are lots of other unique evergreen specimens that stand out in the winter landscape. And just because trees and shrubs have lost their leaves in winter doesn't mean that they lose interest or beauty. So please come along with me today as I show you a sampling of trees that make a beautiful addition to any winter landscape. This is one of our stars at Johnson's Nursery, Firebird crabapple. Introduced by our propagator Mike Yanni, it was selected for its reliably heavy display of white flowers in spring, followed by red berries. You can see it's still holding on to the red fruit and will remain like this all winter. Another great attribute of this tree is its resistance to all major crabapple diseases, and it makes a really nice dwarf specimen. You can expect a mature size of this tree of about 8 to 10 feet tall by 12 feet wide. Here we have red jewel crabapple, one of the showiest crabapple varieties with its incredible display of showy orange-red jewel-like fruits which will stay on the tree through March. Serviceberries are one of those great ornamental trees that I like to call four-season trees. This is because in spring you get a great display of white flowers, followed by glossy green leaves and edible black fruit in summer, and the fall color is really spectacular, in the range of red to orange. But in winter I like the tree because the smooth gray bark really contrasts nicely with the snow around it, especially with a multi-stem form like this one. Ironwood is, in my opinion, an underused small-scale tree. It's native to the dry understories of a Wisconsin oak forest, and as the name suggests, has very strong limbs due to its slow growth rate. However, for a tree named after a strong metal, it has a surprisingly delicate appearance. Look at the fine branching texture and the tiny catkins that remain. This particular tree stands right outside my office, and I've had the privilege of seeing it entirely covered with a fresh coat of white snow. Plus, the bark is pretty awesome. The long peeling strips are enhanced with age and really stand out against the stark landscape. Another tree with interesting bark in winter is Japanese tree lilac. I'm standing next to a multi-stem form of ivory silk. Shrub-form trees tend to pop more in the landscape than single-stem trees. Plus, the dark bark of a Japanese tree lilac is covered with what we call lenticels, which adds another level of interest. I'm standing under a hawthorn. Notice the lateral branching habit. Imagine planting one of these among your tall pyramidal evergreens and your oval-shaped maples. The horizontal lines really break up the landscape and look very pretty after a fresh white snow. Other varieties like Washington and Winter King also produce red-orange berries that really brighten up the landscape. Here's a plant you may not be familiar with, Heptacodium myconides, aka seven sunflower. Seven sunflower is a late bloomer that doesn't hit its stride until about August or September. If you like butterflies, it's a great nectar source with its showy flower display. However, in the winter, I like seven sunflower because of its cool exfoliating bark. You can see as it peels away, it reveals a lighter brown color underneath. It's great for adding winter texture. Perhaps the most stately and majestic of all the Wisconsin native trees is the oak. I mean, who could resist the sight of the gnarled branches of an oak tree in winter? But they're really not the easiest to grow. Many species are either so slow growing, very particular about soil conditions, or just difficult to transplant. Even though you can find oak trees throughout Wisconsin, it's really best to buy them from a locally grown source for best results. This beauty here is actually a naturally occurring cross between a swamp white oak and a bur oak, which results in the best of both trees. The bur oak in it gives you the deep bark ridges and the ability to tolerate our alkaline soil conditions, and that little bit of swamp white oak makes it faster growing for your yard. I'll bet you thought I forgot all about evergreens in the landscape. They certainly all have their merits, but today I want to show you a couple to get you thinking more outside the box. Here's a compact form of Pinus sylvestris called water or Scots Pine. I like this one because it has strong bristly needles and has cool orangish bark that enhances and peels off with age, especially when the tree gets older and starts to open up more with maturity. Another favorite of mine is Swiss stone pine. Are you catching on yet that these are all my favorites? This little guy is a variety called Twister. It works really well as an individual specimen or in groupings where height is needed but not much space exists for width. If you look closely, you can see how it gets its name. The long needle bundles actually twist from the base, and the color is unusual for an evergreen, blue and green needles throughout the tree. This time of year, you will start to notice some yellowing on the tips, but that's normal for winter. Getting back to deciduous options, look at this stand of Korean maples. Just because a tree may lose its leaves doesn't mean it happens all at once. Or they can hold on to their fruit until spring, like the nutlets of a black alder. Try planting a group of these in a corner of the yard where the water drainage is a problem. Or add a river birch or 3 in a similar area to enjoy the cinnamon-colored bark all year long. Another tree with standout bark characteristics is Amur chokecherry, also called Amur machia. When defoliated, this tree's rich bronze bark takes center stage, especially when a setting sun reflects the golden light off a cover of white snow. At the beginning of this episode, I talked about red jewel and Firebird crab apples, which hold on to their fruit for a cheery winter display. Just look at all the terrific fruiting crabapple options that are available too. You may know this variety of maple, or at least noticed one in your neighbor's yard or on your drive to work. Autumn blaze maple is what's known as a Freeman maple and is one of the most popular varieties available. Freeman maples are a naturally occurring hybrid between a silver maple and a red maple, so you get the best characteristics of both. Fast growth rate, really consistent fall color, usually they're seedless, and it's easier to transplant. But another great attribute is in winter especially. If you look towards the top of the tree, the branches have a fiery red color. Now the one that I'm standing next to is a very big specimen. Because they're easier to transplant, we can offer a wide selection of large caliber autumn blaze maples just like this one. Now I bet you may not have one of these in your yard. Or if you do, chances are pretty good that it came from Johnson's Nursery. Meet Musclewood, a small-scale tree that's native to the understory of our Wisconsin forests. You can see how it got its name by the way the strong limbs twist and turn almost like there's muscles underneath the bark. And the branching structure is very similar to the ironwood that we saw earlier, which makes sense because they're both in the birch family. Musclewood is just a fantastic ornamental tree that can stand full sun to dense shade, but if you're not convinced by its winter appearance, wait until you see its vibrant foliage in fall. Spring can seem so far away when you're surrounded by the freezing cold and snow, but the plants I showed you today can really make the winter seem less drab. I invite you to come out to Johnson's Nursery and walk around our display gardens and holding yard for more ideas. Maybe you discovered something today that has a place in your own landscape. For more tips on winter landscaping and anything else on plants, head to our website, johnsonsnursery.com. There you can find my blog, Ask Carrie. Let me know some of your own favorites. Thank you for watching today, and I hope to see you next time to get the latest dirt.